sorts of directions.
I think that's what makes it fun. And I think if you prepare beforehand, you can ruin some of that. You know what I mean? Oh, by the way, let me put my pants on. No, I'm kidding.
Well, that's almost exactly what this is all about.
By the way, I will never do that thing that I keep seeing on the internet. You always see a video of somebody in a live meeting, and then they accidentally stand up or walk behind them, and they're in their shorts. And maybe this has only happened once, and they just blow it out of proportion. But I because of that, I always wear pants just in case.
Yeah, I mean, if you're trying to project some kind of image with the upper part of your body that's completely different from the lower part, in itself there is a kind of a hypocrisy, a kind of image that you're trying to project. What
about shoes then? What about shoes? Should I have the proper shoes on? Can't be barefoot with a suit?
I don't know. I mean, some people when they give you instructions for interviews, even if you're going to be doing that without an actual interaction that's in person, they do tell you to stand up as if you're going to be delivering, to have your.
So you get in the right mindset, right?
Exactly, because you're if you're just relying on your ability to perform mentally, that's not necessarily going to be how your body is going to react, and it does.
Yeah, everybody has to get in the right mindset. I don't know if you've heard this, but all the big sports players, maybe not all, I don't know, but you hear this as a stereotype, at least. Every one of them has like a superstitious thing they do. I have to do this, like wear this something, a scarf, wear a certain underwear, whatever, or they can't win. This is like, yeah. So there's a mindset thing there. All of them are admitting there's mindset issues.
Well, I don't follow sports, but my guess.
Have you heard of this at least?
I've heard of it, but my guess is that the same way that someone would go and start praying before a game and say, "Please God, make me win or make my team win." What does that say?
It's the same.
What does it say when you actually lose? What does it say about the other team that?
Well, they don't think that far.
Yeah, and what does it say about the other team who probably also are doing the same thing?
Yeah. There's a show that talked about this. Have you ever heard of the show Third Rock from the Sun?
A long time ago. I
well, Third Rock from the Sun, for everyone listening, that's the Earth. And the reason they word it this way is it's from the perspective of aliens who came to Earth.
Yeah.
And they're using human bodies. You never see the alien version of their bodies, so it's just regular human actors, right?
Yeah.
The young and they're a family living in a house, and the youngest one is actually the oldest one. I think he's like 400 years old, but he's like 15 years old character. And there's an episode where a scene where he's doing soccer, and they're in the huddle, and the other team's in the huddle, and they're both saying the same things, praying to God that they win. And then he looks to the other team. He's like, "This is not making sense. We're both praying to the same." So he's making your point for you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that everybody knows about that consciously, but when it comes to the game, the exam, or whatever it is that they want God's help to be on their side,
or on your deathbed. For atheists, that's what they say, right? Atheists on their deathbed. They still talk about, or not necessarily deathbed, but if you get scared real quick and you mention God, you know.
Yeah, no atheists in foxholes or something of that sort.
Yeah,
that's
okay. So for people watching, getting to the point here a little bit. Today we're going to be talking about the EALS again, Ex-Muslim Advocates Learning Series, designing it, namely the discussion forum this time for this episode. I want to do some announcements. On December 6th, which is a Saturday, we are doing celebrating Ex-Muslim Awareness Month. It's at 12 p.m. Central, together with Ex-Muslims International. It'll be with Secular Spirit, Alim. And we're going to have a few other guests from EXMI. My mother, I think, is going to be on there. Raga Rustam, too, because she's making a painting. Yeah, she's making a painting for the Free Betty campaign. Possibly Muhammad Sayed, founder of Ex-Muslims of North America, will be talking about whynotislam.net. Possibly Haram Doodles, and then also a new person to our group, you could say, is Nashuz. She wrote a book that I'm reading now, Born a Burden. It's an amazing book. Anyway, I guess there's no link yet that I can give you guys. We don't have that yet. And what is that? Just over a week from now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, next announcement. Continuing this, because Ibtisam Lashkar is still not free. Please sign the petition if you haven't already done so. We have almost 6,500 signatures so far.
Any idea about this? There's an uptick of about 1,000, well, maybe less than 1,000 since we last discussed this. Was there some kind of a... Is it because of the coordinated campaign? Is it something else? Well,
I'm not sure. I noticed a huge uptick too. There are a lot of things happening in the background still. I learned a lot about them in the last meeting with the group. There's a new website now, freebetty.org. It's in the comments now. It's a lot of the same content, but also the new stuff. There's a new campaign they're going to do. This sounds really cool. So one of the situations is she's been in jail now 2 months, and she does not have a mattress still. And, you know, she has health issues in addition. It's not like a fully healthy person sleeping on the floor. This is trouble with her arm. She's a cancer survivor. It's in 2 months without a mattress. So the idea is to take a mattress and put it in front of the city hall of a bunch of places with a sign saying Free Betty, or, you know.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
When you think of prisons and what typically is supposed to be there, whether you are really guilty of a crime or not, you're supposed to be getting a minimum level of attention that has nothing to do with whatever you are there for. So if at the level of no health, attention to the health, or merely having a mattress, that's taking it too far.
Well, the other way to look at it is, what are the conditions of everybody else? Well, I'm pretty sure everybody else has mattresses. So the point is, it's not an accident that there's no mattress. It's not like, you know, all their prisoners have no mattress and it's because they don't have money for it. They're making an intentional choice not to have a mattress.
Yeah, that's I don't know about the conditions of that particular prison to actually make a statement about this confidently, but I suspect probably we're talking about people who need to sleep, lie down, sit, whatever it is. So this is just a basic piece of furniture that you're supposed to have, regardless.
Yeah, you can't be on concrete. We didn't evolve for concrete. I mean, grass would be fine, but since there's no grass, you better have a mattress.
Yeah.
Maybe if it was dirt, it would be fine. Dirt is softer.
Makes you wonder what the end game of this thing is. Is it a kind of a punishment directed to her, or is it also targeting other members in her group who might...
I think it's mostly what all these things are, which is they see it as a lesson. They might not agree with the words I'm saying.
Yeah, I avoided using that word. I had it in mind, but I avoided using it.
Yeah. They might not agree with my choice of words, but they want it as a lesson to teach everybody else that if you do what she did, this is what's going to happen to you. And of course, their purpose of that is don't do it. This is how you'll be punished. So the more they torture her, the more it serves their goal, that goal.
Yeah, and it's
I mean, and there is a limit, because if you go beyond a certain level of torture, then the world screams more at you. You know what I mean? Like, because there's 1,000 more variations of stuff.
yeah. I'm just wondering where they might actually stop or might change course. At what point, when she starts developing some serious issue and has to be hospitalized for it, or?
Well, let me say some things that we know now. I recorded some of the stuff that I learned about the Free Betty situation. So EXMNA, we've said already on the show that they contacted what am I trying to say? House of Reps Hoffman, last name Hoffman.
Yeah.
And he reached out to, I think, his counterpart in Morocco to put pressure to do, for something to happen. And I think what came out of that was they did a medical appointment for her. And so she got some medicine. I don't know how much of that happened from that. It's a small little thing. But we need a lot more of things like that. They're also trying to get, this is the XMNA again, trying to get the UN to put like a notice, I don't know how the language here, about Betty's case. I guess the idea is the UN has a little department for these kind of issues, humanist secular causes around the world. And the idea is to get Betty's case on the list. I don't know how much those kind of things do anything either. The mattress thing is scheduled for December 10th, Human Rights Day. They'll definitely be doing it in Paris, if I understand correctly. That's the current plan. They're trying to model how, part of this is modeling in both past and future. In what ways were we able to get someone free in the past? Mm-hmm. How can those tools be used now? And then also, whatever new things we come up with now, how do we use them in the future for the next case? Apparently there's a similar case in Germany. I don't know how to pronounce this. Boulim Sensel. That's probably way off. From Algeria. I don't know. They're trying to contact other secular organizations that have good relations with. What does MP stand for?
Member of Parliament.
Oh, okay. In France, in the UK, in Berlin, and to write a letter in the same way that the EXMNA wrote a letter to House of Reps Hoffman in the US. So they're trying to just do more of the same tool with other countries.
What's worrying with these cases is that the organizations that are actually being approached in order to support this or to put pressure, you're actually competing with other situations that might have many more people affected, like wars and things of that sort, so that there might be human rights violations there, and it's not happening to one person, but it's affecting so many different people at the same time. And so you're basically competing for attention in a situation where they might say, we have a limited amount of resources, we probably should be dedicating more of that to address this bigger issue than to just talk about the problem of one individual.
But they also have our same logic, which is you do need to shine light on at least a few cases because that will help the whole group, even the ones that are not.
That was actually the second part of my point, because of the fact that those bigger bodies that are basically multi-purpose have so much on their plate. It's probably it falls more on the shoulders of fellow ex-Muslims, fellow activists, to take the burden of just getting the word out, trying to do some of that work ourselves, instead of just relying on these bigger organizations, which should happen. I'm not saying that this is an alternative. I'm just saying that maybe the burden should be spread out in order to raise awareness about these issues, but also to do some of the work that these other organizations would also be doing.
I want to shine light on another situation like Betty's. It's more up in the air. Sharif Gaber, as far as I understand, the government hasn't even reported that they have him.
Yeah.
So there's a hashtag they're using now. Where is Sharif Gaber?
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, it's like we talked about last time. His situation is an ongoing situation for many years now, and I'm not aware of a certain specific thing that happened recently that might have instigated the government to actually act against him now. Maybe there was something, but I'm not aware of it. But every once in a while, they do something like this. He sometimes gets detained. He did mention some form of torture at one point in the past. So it's not really inconceivable that this is something that's happening. The fact that this time he disappeared without any kind of acknowledgement that he's being detained. That's
yeah, and I wonder if the other people, because supposedly, according to this post that's on the screen, it says many people were gathered up, not just Sharif Gaber. So it would be interesting to know what's happening to them.
Yeah, it might be a part of a governmental campaign for some reason, because the situation with Sharif is that he's actually very visible, and not only visible in Egypt, he's visible outside. So if you I haven't looked at that recently, but I was following his Patreon for quite a while. Many of his supporters come from outside, because he was.
You mean expatriates, or you mean people have nothing to do with Egypt?
No, people who have nothing to do with Egypt. As a kind of a human rights case. Someone
and he pretty much I think he only does Arabic, right? So it's Arabic speaking people around the world.
Not exactly. He does actually cater to some extent to his audience in English, but not to the extent that you would go and watch some of the content in English. I think he might have had one or two videos in English, if I'm not mistaken. But what he does is that sometimes he subtitles his videos.
Yeah, subtitles in English. So that, I guess that's good enough. Because there's one video that I reuse of his about jinn, and I love it. It's so good, and it's in Arabic, but it's got the English subtitles. That's good enough for everyone that I send it to.
Yeah.
So you're right. Yeah, that makes sense. He would have a English following too.
Yeah, and the fact that on Twitter every once in a while, Twitter X, he was also putting some updates about his actual situation, and he would do it in English. So it's not that he's only talking to Arabs or doing his outreach in Arabic. He's specifically trying to get his situation known, also in outside of Egypt. Now there is another case. I mentioned him before, Ahmed Harakan, uh, who I think either appeared concurrently with Sharif Gaber at the beginning or was a little bit before him. He was basically one of the first people to come out in Egypt. He was hosted in on TV shows. Basically, they would bring a clerk in order to make fun of him or to belittle him or something like that. He was forced through many times to um, to put a veneer of recanting, basically, and appear to be
Oh
Muslim
yes, I remember this.
until he
And then
was
he got
actually
heat about that. He got heat about that.
yeah, and until he was able to
And I
actually
think
leave.
unwarranted heat.
Yeah, yeah, he was able eventually to leave Egypt, and his leaving was actually really epic. He went through the desert in Libya and Chad until he eventually reached Italy. He was walking. Yeah, yeah, he was walking. That was it. He documented that on his YouTube. It was this was truly kind of an amazing feat that eventually landed him in Europe. I haven't been following his situation recently, but I think he just settled there. The reason why I mentioned this is because I saw something he wrote recently about solidarity with Sharif Gaber. He's obviously he knows exactly what he's going through, and so if anybody is going to be showing solidarity, it would be him.
Okay, so should we go to the main point of today?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
All right. EALS, again, ex-Muslim Advocates Learning Series. We're designing it. Today we're going to focus on mainly the discussion forum part of it. For now, anyone who would like to give anonymous feedback on what you would like EALS to be, the structure, the learning content, or whatever, we're still at the stage of collecting feedback before we solidify what it is going to be. Last week, or it's 2 weeks now, but last episode we discussed that form to try to improve it. So if I don't know, maybe I'd rather not spend the time looking at that again, but it's not like it's finished. It still needs work,
Yeah.
So if anyone who's watching goes to that form and you notice it needs to be improved, please let me know. Send a message here in the comments. I'd like to improve it so that it does better at getting feedback and appropriate feedback too. You can imagine having the wrong questions and stuff.
Can they use the form itself to give feedback about the form?
You know what? I should make that a question in the form. I should do that. Good point.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would be the next step? I guess we can look at the discussion forum now. So let me put the comment and put that on the screen. So here it is. In the comments, you'll see the link to take you to the discussion forum. Let me put that on the screen now. This one, I guess. Yeah, that's it.
Just a little comment. I'm not sure if it's actually good or bad for search engines, but the URL, the way that it's formatted, EALS Forum Uniting the Cults, maybe it has too many words. I don't know.
Well, by the way, that's just a I don't even know the correct terminology. It's just a URL that points to the real URL. The real one is eals.discourse.group, and that's because I pay for the almost free plan. Once I have the higher plan, or I have the more sophisticated system, then I can use whatever URL I want.
Oh, so it's a redirect.
The one you saw is a redirecting thing. Yeah.
Okay.
The EALS-forum.unitedcoast.com. That's a redirect. Anyway, so here's what it looks like when you get on here. Actually, this still doesn't look right. Normally, there's a thing that shows up right at the top, which says that because you're not logged in, you can't post, and if you want to post, you have to be a member, and then it gives you a link. I don't know why it's not showing up now. Maybe I got to reset cookies. Anyway, I've added a few posts now. By the way, so whoever's watching, but including Usama and everybody, I need help with like even knowing where to put everything in the forum. What I see as the main post is the post that people see when they first come here. So whenever I'm in writing an ad somewhere, or wherever I'm writing anywhere else on Reddit or whatever, and I want to give a link, sometimes I give a link to our website that talks about EALS, and other times I give a link directly to this forum, but not just anywhere, specifically to this post. So this is the first thing they see. And all of this needs to be improved, but this starts out saying who's making the program and the purpose of the program and how it works and what we're going to be teaching and our guiding philosophy. And I don't know that all this, like, I don't know how much, like, all this is guiding philosophy stuff. This is like 70% of this post. I don't know why all that needs to be there. You know, sometimes I'm writing stuff like, okay, it's good, but maybe it can be packaged somewhere else instead of right up front, you know? And then at the bottom of this post, I have next steps. And what I would like to do is train people that every post they see has a thing at the bottom that says next steps. So it's like me saying, here, since you're at this post, I'm making a guess of where you are in the trajectory of all this. So I'm making a guess of what the next step for you would be. And on this post is two things. The first thing is saying, we haven't launched yet, but if you want to help us plan these things, it's just giving a link to these live streams, the playlist on YouTube. And the second one is a link to the anonymous forum. Okay. And I don't want to have too many. I don't want to have like 8 next steps, 1 or 2. Okay. So Usama, one day, if you got time and you want to waste it, go to this page. How would you know to go to this one? I mean, you might remember it just says what is Ex-Muslim Advocates Learning Series. So if you find the web page,
wouldn't that be the first thing that shows up anyway?
It should be. I'm not so. I don't understand this site so well. Where, you know, because the way it shows me the site for me, I already know is different than for everybody else. This is the everybody else version, and it shows it first. But I don't know. I don't remember the logic of why it's choosing that.
But okay, so maybe this is something that has been linked multiple times, or has been viewed multiple times, or has some kind of.
Pinned? But if I pin multiple things, I don't know how it shows which pinned thing first.
Yeah,
maybe newest.
Yeah, I mean, on places like Facebook or some general forum setups, I think you have a bunch of pinned stuff, and then the higher the topic would be related to maybe how many comments or how much activity there is related.
Yeah, I think in this case it's newness.
Possibly, yeah. That's also another.
And then right after the pinned, it goes straight into the other ones, and then it doesn't have the pinned sign. So let me just tell you some stuff I posted, and then maybe you can give me
before that you were talking about whether this actually should be put prominently, or should be the landing page, or this should be packaged somewhere else. If this actually gives a summary, it does deserve to be pinned, and it does deserve to be the landing page. So I'm
Yeah,
not
but
sure
what
why.
I meant was which specific things inside this post should be, good for this post or moved to somewhere else.
Well, if so, here's the thing. If I'm someone who's interested in the topic, I would probably want to know as much as possible right from the start. But I can also imagine that if I'm being flooded with information and I'm just trying to get acquainted with it, I might not actually be able to figure out what this is really talking about. If it's telling me too much in such a small space at the outset, it might be less informative than it wants to be. So yeah, there are things on
Yeah,
both
I mean,
sides of.
just imagine. I don't know how well you're following it as I show this to you, but first paragraph is just saying who we are and what the program is, the purpose, and then a little bit about the logistics, and then what we're teaching. Okay, so that all makes sense. It should be there. Then the next section is ginormous, and it's like the guiding philosophy of the program, which maybe could be a separate document.
Yeah, it's possible maybe to put it as something that's separate that gets linked.
Yeah, it could be like it could be like this. So where it goes next steps, I could have 3 things, and one of them be here's
Yeah,
our guiding philosophy,
yeah.
and that would just make this shorter and more. I don't know. Maybe I should have a mental limit of maximum characters of a post, or at least some types of posts.
Yeah, that I don't think the maximum number of characters is necessarily the criterion, but if this is basically dumping the entire thing onto the person who's coming in for the first time, that might be a little bit overwhelming or might be
Yeah,
too much. And so they might want to explore the guidelines if they want, but not necessarily. They might just want to hang around, look at the comments, and then once they're more comfortable, they can jump to the next step that's being suggested there. So yeah, maybe
yeah.
that part
I mean,
could be.
I think part of what you're saying there is the first digestible chunk of a big series of things should be pretty small compared to all the other ones.
Yeah,
Right?
should be small, but also should be accessible. Like if you're going to be diving into the deep end right away, your appreciation of what you're actually reading might not be the same as if. So you probably have to go through some stages until you feel comfortable appreciating or understanding what's going on in the next step. But if you lump them two together, maybe that's going to decrease the effectiveness of both.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's why in general, if we have a thing, you want it to have one purpose instead of 2 purposes, because there could be competing attention for the 2 things and causing confusion. Yeah. By the way,
Yeah.
this pin thing, when you press this, you're telling the system, okay, I've read this, don't show it to me anymore. I think that's how it works.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Pinned usually probably is something that you as administrator do in order to keep something at the top.
So maybe I'm wrong on that, because just now I tried to do it, it didn't work. So I must be misremembering. Maybe it was some other thing that when you click on it, it makes it go away. Anyway, so are we ready to?
You said you're doing this from the perspective of people outside. People outside cannot unpin this.
Oh, maybe they got to be logged in first. That's what it is.
No. Even then, my suspicion is that once you pin this as an administrator, other users cannot unpin it. They can probably pin their own or bookmark, maybe not pin.
Actually, I think I confirmed it. I logged in under myself, and because I clicked on those 2 pin things, and I told it I don't need to see this anymore by clicking on them, they don't show up. Yeah. Okay, so can I start showing you the other things that I posted on here?
Yeah. So just before that, the 4 comments, are they yours or are they someone else's?
The 4 comments. Where does it say 4 comments? Oh, this replies.
Yeah.
That's showing that each time I edited, it makes a record of some shit. I want to know how to delete that because that's annoying.
Yeah, I thought these would be comments or replies or something.
No one has replied to anything in here yet. There's technically 2 members, but no one has done anything. Okay,
well,
so
that actually speaks to that particular point we were just discussing now, that maybe if this is too much and you just dump the whole thing on the new user, I mean, I would be speechless, not really knowing, okay, so you told me all that. So the next step would be, if I'm really interested, I'm going to go and look at that in detail. But in order to be able to make some comments, maybe they can at most give overall structural comments rather than specific targeted comments that talk about this point or that point. So
there would have to be a call to action asking them to give comments of certain types, but that's part of what I want to discuss with you. So here's the first example. The very next pinned post says, as a member, what knowledge, skills, abilities do you hope to gain from your time here? And it's just asking them to reply. And actually, I realize now, in here, I should also give the anonymous form in case they want to give feedback without this login identifying them. Okay,
And there is no way here on this to actually make anonymous comments. It has to go through the Google form.
Yeah, that's the way I've been imagining it. You have to be a member to reply. I don't want to have random people.
Yeah, you could actually collect a lot of spam, a lot of unnecessary comments.
And again, since I'm already giving them away to anonymously give us feedback, I don't want to open it up just for that reason here.
Yeah, you know? Yeah. It's 2 clicks, which means that if you're going to actually be giving a comment, you really have a comment, something that's really burning that you would like to say.
Yeah. That's actually a reason sometimes people make an extra step, is to filter out people that are not that interested. I'm guessing you know that. That's why you brought it up.
Yeah, so that's the first. Then this EALS feedback probably then needs that form URL there.
Yeah, I'm leaving myself a task list. So those there's 2 things on there now. Okay, can I keep going with the other posts?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
All right. I spend a lot of time in the ex-Muslim subreddit, and occasionally there's a new thing I want to post, and then while I'm doing that, I'm like, oh, this is probably worth putting on EALS. So I've been doing that, and then some of that, a lot of what I post is also a little bit better versions of really old things I posted like a year ago, and then when that happens, like, oh shit, okay, this is worth being in EALS. So there's old and new things ending up on EALS. So let me just give it examples of some of them. One of the earlier ones was this right here. I just gave it a title: Navigating Family Intrusion, A Guide to Boundaries for Ex-Muslims. It's a long essay. I think it's very thorough. I wrote it most recently. It's one of my most recent pieces of writing. I did have help from AI. All my previous pieces of writing never had help from AI because they didn't exist yet.
I think including that help from AI is actually more valuable than people would think. The refinement that happens then, the possible back and forth that you could have is actually is valuable. So
look, it's no different than having a ghostwriter helping you. I have an AI ghostwriter. It's no different than that. And to be clear, like, it's not like the ghostwriter is doing the writing, because there was very often times ChatGPT will say something asinine, like, no, that is not what I want it to say because that is wrong. You know what I mean? Like, it would come up with something that's totally against my ideas. So, it's definitely my input in here, not ChatGPT's. ChatGPT is just good at like a good thesaurus. Phrase this in a way that doesn't sound so clunky.
Once it really knows how you think, it starts looking like a sounding board in a way.
Yeah, there's some of that. Yeah. Okay, so that one, I put that on October 25th. That's a month ago. This one I wrote shortly after that, and it's a little bit saying what the previous essay was saying, but not explaining the method really, just giving one tiny little example. It's almost like this is one little example of that big essay.
Okay, so it doesn't seem that you have any ability to see statistics of views or engagement or anything.
I looked for statistics a few minutes ago. I didn't find a report for that. I'm sure I'll find it. I'll ask ChatGPT or actually, I want to say this. The platform I'm using is called Discourse, and Discourse has its own built-in AI, which is damn good. Every time I need help, I don't go to Google or ChatGPT anymore. I'm directly inside of Discourse asking an AI, and it's damn good answers of how to change a feature.
Asking about the platform itself.
About how to change a feature in the platform, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not asking it philosophical questions.
Well, I think some of the newer developments probably might be worth it, like with the Gemini and ChatGPT Atlas that let you actually work on the browser and at the same time be helping you with the actual content that you're doing. That's actually.
Hey, I just noticed something. There was the 2 pin posts we saw before. There's a 3rd pin post after 2 or 3 non-pinned posts. So I don't fucking know how this is ordered. I have to figure this out.
That's bizarre.
Bizarre is a great word for that. Perfect word.
If you were to reload the page, would that change the ordering?
It's the same. And I'll tell you what's happening. These 3 are newer than this. So this just looks to be, I'm under latest, so this is just newest to oldest. If I go to hot, that I guess goes by how many people have seen it, and I guess then categories. And by the way, there's other ways to set up Discourse so that there's other things here besides these 3 things here. This is just the default. I haven't thought about how to change it yet. Yeah, a lot of thought needs to be put into that kind of stuff.
Yeah, if this is pinned and it's not really actually at the top, I'm not sure what it means anymore. But you're looking at this. Probably there has to be some other way to view this that probably would prioritize certain.
I'm gonna put a task here. Figure out how pinned works, and choose ordering structure. And then also choose the whole navigation structure, which I'm sure will come up with things and change them in the future. I don't think it's too important now.
Going back to the actual content, the one that you were showing earlier, I think it was it the guide? I'm not sure. One of them was significantly also large. Do you think that? Yeah,
it's 1,200 words.
Yeah. So as a kind of a post, is it a kind of an informative post? Is it a post that's expecting engagement? Because, for example, if you're looking at this from the point of view of typical forums, you do have these two different categories where you have a whole article, and some people might analyze it, might comment on it, and a different type where you just like an update of a status, like in social media, where you would just put a single sentence and then people would be reacting to that sentence. So which
This is a
of
whole
these
article. And I would like to invite feedback. So maybe I should add another, like, last line asking for feedback. But let me tell you what next steps I chose. If you're new to this site and you want to know what's going on here, see this post for clarification. It's just showing them the first post. By the way, the reason I put this here is sometimes, you know, I've been doing this on the ex-Muslim subreddit for years now. When somebody says something that I could reply with an essay, I don't just give the essay. I say something that they find valuable, and then I say, I have an essay if you want to learn more. Then I give them the essay. And instead of giving them an essay, this is what I used to do. I would give them an essay that was living on the ex-Muslim subreddit. Now I'm putting all those here one by one, so I can send them here instead of right. Yeah. But then because now they're coming here with the first time for this post, then a next step that might make sense is see the original post, the first post that gives them an idea of what this site is. The second next step I put here is to learn more about how to do this method. We will be dedicating a lecture episode to it. So to learn more, stay tuned. Currently, we're aiming to talk about this in episode 4, titled Self-Care Boundaries. So this content is going to be one of the lecture episodes. So this is like a, I don't know, this is a way where people can be learning it from the discussion forum even before it's in the lecture episode. And I think one bonus here is it's telling them, hey, there's real shit here. If you like what this says, then you're probably going to like what's in the rest of the lecture episodes.
So are you foreseeing the feedback as a kind of a comment or a criticism to the content, or are you looking also for possible reactions and
all sorts,
sharing?
All sorts. What?
Yeah. So maybe what's being solicited by you in the forum in general, but in some posts where you're expecting people to share their own stories, or to make comments, or to criticize, or to propose new ideas. Maybe what's expected to be what you're expecting them to do is something that maybe need to be spelled out more clearly.
Very clearly, yeah. You can't just say, "Hey, give me feedback." You have to say, "Give me feedback in these ways: X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, F." I think I know all the letters.
As opposed to the anonymous forum that you have separately from the forum itself. So what,
yeah, right at the end of this essay, and really every essay deserves something like that.
Yeah. So any kind of, if you look at this from the point of view, say, of blogs and how they are typically organized, whether you're talking about a small essay or just a picture or whatever it is that you're sharing, there is a comment section where you have people.
Oh, you're just asking about the physical comment section, I think. Yeah, right here, reply.
Yeah.
So I will put an extra paragraph in here asking for feedback in very specific ways, like you described.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm
talking about. And give their feedback. And I hope for all kinds of feedback. I mean, it like that paragraph, the call to action for the feedback, that needs a lot of thought, because you can't just say, this is the kind of stuff I've done before. Questions, comma, comments, comma, critical feedback. That's not enough. You need like paragraphs. Of course, I can't have it so long that it kind of almost drowns out the essay. So at most, it's going to be something like maybe less than this size, smaller than this.
Yeah, yeah, something to actually direct the reader to know what kind of thing you had in mind when you put this, and what kind of expectation you have of them.
Yeah. By the way, do you think that it would make sense to put that paragraph as a bullet point under next steps?
Yeah,
Or
that's actually not a bad idea, I think.
because because I'm kind of worried they see this extra paragraph and they think it's part of the essay, makes the essay look even bigger.
Yeah, no, that's actually not a bad idea, because right before you started saying this, I was thinking that since this is a course to begin with, that might actually appear like as you're studying for this, as you're doing your assignment that's related to this, here are some exercises that you can do, or additional resources that you can read in order to enrich or reinforce those ideas, or to think a little bit more about this topic from a different perspective, etc., etc.
Yeah, you know
So,
what I'll do? I'm gonna draft that little call to action and send it to you so you can help me improve it.
sure.
I know you have to think about this a lot because you try to get feedback from your students, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's always something that if you're trying to have just a lecture where you deliver what you have, and people say take that as a kind of a definitive pronouncement that you have about this,
Gospel.
without having a kind of an engagement with the students, you don't even know what they have actually internalized. You don't know what they're understanding. And very often you would be so surprised at how people understand something that seems to you so obvious, that they come up with so different interpretations that probably require that type of engagement in order for you to clarify what you had in mind, and what the intended purpose is, and what they might be getting wrong about this.
Real quick, let's acknowledge that we have people here watching us. There's Ragad, my mother, 3
Hello,
claps.
Rob.
Mulhid Islam says Toba Toba, Astaghfirullah. That's his signature line. Review says go Rami and Osama, and before he did it really efficiently. He just said go RNU. Really efficient. Must be American. I don't know. Okay. Were we done with this post? Can I move on?
Yeah, I think it requires some kind of a framing, and I think if you maybe add this in the next step, that would probably be a good framing. I don't know if the post itself is too long, that it needs to be divided up into smaller pieces if it has multiple themes, but the next step part probably needs to be modified.
Well, if you want, you could read the essay to find out if you think it could be split up. I think it's one unit.
Right. So, from your perspective, given the fact that you're the one who wrote it, I think if you're just thinking that it's one idea that needs to be coherently put together, maybe it should stay like this.
Yeah. Okay. The next 3 posts that I wrote very recently, these are older. These are versions of old things I've written. I have one called "A Guide for New Ex-Muslims." And it just says, it says, please add your advice in the comments. So I'm asking for other ex-Muslims who are already been through these kind of things, who have their own advice, probably similar to mine, but definitely would be potentially saying things that I'm not saying. I only put 4 things here. Start journaling, and I have tips, which I put in another post. And then I have improve your epistemology. By the way, I have a better way of saying this now. I used to say learn epistemology. I think that's bad because that's making it sound like you have none in your head now and you're going to start from scratch. No, you already have an epistemology. It's already in your head. There's explicit ideas in your head about it and a whole bunch of inexplicit ideas and intuition about it. So all I'm saying is to improve it iteratively too. And I say here that it's one of the topics of the lecture episodes. Expose yourself to things outside of your culture, books, fiction and nonfiction, documentaries, movies, TV. This will help you distance yourself from your own culture. And then I clarify, but note, don't throw out your culture. It has good stuff too. Don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Like, I'm not saying distance yourself from your culture and become some other culture and delete all of yours.
I don't think it's even possible, even if you try.
Yeah, probably. And there's no reason to, because again, it has good stuff. There's no such thing as a culture that has no good stuff. By the way, even something like even if you imagine, let's say Nazis, the reason they were able to do some of what they did is part of the culture they came from was good. So there's good stuff in it. They went
no person. Yeah, no person who's doing something bad realizes that they are really doing something bad as such. They probably think that they're serving some kind of a greater good at some level.
Yeah, well, the people running the Nazis at the time were eugenicists, the type to think that, you know, there's like a good human race and then a bunch of bad ones.
Yeah.
And anyway, that stuff is wrong. And the fourth point here is get psychotherapy. And I say, if you can't, use ChatGPT, and I have tips on that. And of course, I have tips on how to use human therapists. And then I say, all these things are things that will be part of EALS lecture episodes and stuff. And then next steps is those two links that I mentioned above, a guide, a beginner's guide to journaling. This is an old post I made, which I probably should update a little bit. And then that second next step from the last post, which is the same next step you have right here, is the tips on using psychotherapy. By the way, you remember all this content from the Deconstructing Islam miniseries. That's not right. I said that wrong. The miniseries we did on de-indoctrinating yourself.
Yeah.
Those 7 episodes. Really, that's all what this is here. Repackaged. Better this time around. And then with a link to an episode I did with Hani Dweck, he was on the episode in that series for journaling and therapy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's really cool now is, I think it was this morning, there was a post asking in the ex-Muslim subreddit, directly asking, has anyone done therapy? Can you tell me about it? And if you didn't do therapy, can you tell me about it? So I replied saying, I've done psychotherapy. I found it very valuable. I would totally do it again, but it wasn't about religious issues. It was romantic relationship issues. And then I said, and in their post, they had mentioned, you know, how are you going to have a therapist who doesn't know anything about ex-Muslim issues? So I said, yeah, that's fine. That makes sense. There's ex-Muslim therapists who specialize in religious trauma. And of course, especially the ex-Muslim version of that. And I gave them 3 links. Zara Kay's Faithless Hijabi therapy program, and Aisha Khan's After Faith program, which is just her. And then a third ex-Muslim organization doing therapy, and I forget the name now, but I gave all 3 links, and then I gave them the link of me talking with Zara and Aisha Khan, which, and I made it clear the purpose of this discussion was to expose new ex-Muslims who've never had therapy to what therapy is and how to do therapy, to get acquainted with what it is and what's the value of it.
Yeah.
So that comment I made this morning, very complete. And it's so cool that, I used to get complaints like, well, who are you? What do you know? Like, what's your license or what's your whatever the fuck? And in this case, I don't have to say, I'm not saying I'm a therapist, and I'm not saying what a therapist does. What I'm telling you is how to be the therapy client. I can tell you how to be a therapy client. I mean, me and Hanny talked about this. We're both experts in being therapy clients. Not like we've done a lot of it, but we can walk somebody through it who's never done it. And that doesn't mean we're making claims about therapy.
Yeah, the first few sessions that you might have with the therapist, you'd basically, especially if you haven't done it before, you would be getting acquainted with the whole process. The therapist would be trying to get acquainted with you, and so it's a kind of a bumpy thing at the beginning.
Yeah. Well, a big thing they ask you, and when you said for the therapist to get acquainted with you, a big part of that is the therapist getting acquainted with what are your objectives for dealing with the therapist. Like, what are you trying to achieve? That's part of it too. And by the way, that's a normal question in other contexts of, like, if a business hires a business consultant, the consultant will ask you that question. What are you trying to achieve by hiring me? So that I can actually achieve that with you. You know what I mean? Because imagine you leave that unstated. By the way, that's a lot of the miscommunications people have, is because that is not unstated.
Yeah, though I have to say, with the therapist, things are a little bit different in the following sense. You might come up with, so you could come with a certain thing that you believe is your problem, but in fact, when you start digging deep, it turns out that.
But it's fine. Because that's a nested problem within the major problem, and that major problem is still there, and it's the framework. Like, as an example, let's do an example. If somebody came to me and said, I have a sleeping problem, and I start talking to them about their sleeping problem, and then it turns out they're now talking and focusing about how they spend their time at the end of the night before they go to sleep. And they're not talking about sleep. Now they're talking about things like, oh, well, I want to do this thing, and I didn't have time to do this thing. And so now they're not even mentioning sleep. Now it's a whole bunch of psychological things. And now they might be talking about, well, I'm worried about if tomorrow this is not going to happen, and this is going to happen. Now we're talking about more like a panic attack or panicking scenario, and it has nothing to do with sleep. But it's still a sleep problem, and that's why they came to you.
Yeah. It's like when you're talking about someone has fever. Fever is not a sickness on its own. It's a symptom, and if you go saying, I would like to get rid of this fever, you're probably going to be looking for the underlying problem that's causing the fever in the first place.
The root problem, the root cause, You still need to deal with the surface level issue too, though, because fever can kill you. Because fever can kill you, so that's why they have a mechanism of bringing down your fever, even if they don't know what the root cause is.
No, that's definitely the case. It's just that.
Hey, here's another scenario. Help me with this scenario. Suppose I always try to bring it back to the things that we know, and I have a lot of experience with, like, being in the physics department. Okay, and so do you. Well, you were on my end as the student, but you're also the teacher. I was never a teacher, although I did do tutoring, but I was never a professor. Imagine somebody comes to you and says, hey, I want your help. And you're like, okay, what are your goals? What do you want to achieve with your time with me? And they say, I want to be a physician, and I'm in the biology department, and they said I have to take your class. Okay. So you say, okay. So in your head, you're thinking, so you don't care that much about physics, but you at least care about physics enough for you to become a medical doctor. And then, because of what you just heard, you say, okay, and by the way, the physics professor doesn't do this, but just imagine it is that person doing it. Really, it's your counselor that's helping you choose classes. But imagine the physics professor is like, okay, here's the physics classes that I think you need. You don't need these other physics classes.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be a medical doctor, not a physics professor or somebody working in physics, but in industry. And then let's say the other variation is not a biology student, but somebody who wants to be an engineer. That person needs a different set of physics classes than the biology student, and again, a different set of physics classes than the somebody that's going to be a physics professor or work in industry as a physicist.
Yeah.
But a lot of the information is still the same. Maybe presented differently. It's interesting to me that in physics departments, there's a set of 2 classes that biology students will take, and from what I understand, biology students only take 2 physics classes. Okay, and those 2 classes, there is a sister version of those 2 classes that physics students take. You could say it's the same content, but they're giving it to you differently. One of them has calculus as part of it, and the other one says, no, we're not doing calculus version of this.
To some extent, yeah.
Yeah, right? Two classes that are kind of the same content. Would you say they're different content? You know those 2 classes I'm talking about, right?
There is emphasis on different types of applications that you might be using. So, for example, if you're going to be doing that for people who are in the living life sciences, then you might emphasize, for example, biomechanics when you're talking about torque and forces instead of discussing cars, for example. You would talk about topics that are not exactly very useful or relevant for someone who is not in the medical profession. Like, for example, studying the ECG, electrocardiogram, as an application of the electric potential for people in the life sciences, whereas you don't do that.
Well, I wonder if I screwed up. Let me tell you what I did in school. So I was a biology major, gonna be a medical doctor. And in my first year, I was told by my counselor, yeah, biology students take physics in their 3rd year. And I'm like, fuck no, I'm not waiting for that. I want physics now. He said, okay, it's just not normal. And partly it's because they want to spread out the science classes. They don't want a student to have 4 science and math classes in one semester.
Possibly, yeah.
He warned me against that, and I was like, no, I'll take them all. And by the way, that was the year that was the semester I did the best because it was just science and math classes. I hated it when I had other classes. And then here's what I did. Because I liked physics, I wanted the physics versions of those physics classes instead of the watered down. I saw it as watered down physics classes for biology majors. But then that means they chose the content like you were describing as if I wasn't going to be the biology major, right? So I probably didn't get some of the stuff they got. What do you think?
Yeah, well, not all places do the same thing. So you can pick what is called a college physics book, which is the one that's usually taught with algebra that's suitable for people in the life sciences, and it might not have any kind of biology as such. It would just be the algebra version of the same kind of physics. Other books are more geared towards life sciences, and so would have some kind of an emphasis on applications that are related to the life sciences. But when it comes to the content, the actual content is really not radically different. It's not like someone is solving Newton's second law as a differential equation and putting it as if you're talking about an intro course, it's an intro course. It's not going to go beyond a certain level unless it's just an honors course that's really trying to challenge the students and present something that's not typical.
So here's why this is on my mind. So that's the analogy. This physics department scenario of an engineer and a biology major and a physics major going into the physics department and saying, hey, what should I learn? And again, they're not saying, hey, I want to learn X, Y, and Z. They don't even know to say what X, Y, and Z would be. Maybe there's some of that. I can imagine a really interested physics major who kind of already knows some of what he wants to go learn. And he might say, I want that class and that class and that class. But anyway, I want to use this as an analogy for the EALS case. People are coming into EALS who are wanting to learn things, and they might have the same scenario. Hey, you guys have a bunch of classes. Which classes are for me? And they might already have an idea of which things. By the way, the other analogy also works too with the therapist. Suppose you're somebody who never had therapy versus you're somebody that's had therapy for years, but you still want more therapy. And you come to, a company that does therapy and say, hey, I want a therapist for this said problem. The more veteran therapy client will already have an idea of what therapy tools exist and which ones maybe they don't like or which ones they do like. But in the EALS scenario, you'll have people on all ends of the scale of their trajectory of what they're learning after they came out of Islam. And of course, not everybody goes in the same trajectory of phases, but there's a little bit of the same across all the people. Like, for example, everybody who was in Islam for a while and now they're out, I think everybody could find a lot of benefit from getting therapy. Okay? I don't think there's anybody that wouldn't. And I think that's true for everyone on the planet, unless you had like such amazing parents who themselves had therapy and fixed all their shit before they had a baby. I don't think anyone exists like that. So, and then, the idea of learning epistemology, I'm trying to think, is there such a thing as a new ex-Muslim who already knows a ton of epistemology and doesn't need to learn any? I don't think so. Because even among never Muslims, I think the epistemology that is taught in schools or that anyone did in a philosophy department or took a class or whatever isn't good. And I mean, even including somebody who majored in epistemology. I don't think what's in philosophy departments is good in that scenario.
When you usually talk about epistemology, you have a very specific thing in mind that derives from Popper and Deutsch, which is not generally what people. When you say the word epistemology, that's not what comes to mind.
Yeah, most people teaching epistemology, maybe Popper gets mentioned. Definitely not Deutsch, but maybe Popper gets mentioned. And then there's other. I heard other epistemology departments that do focus more on Popper, but not like the way I do or whatever.
Well, epistemology has a very long history, and it's when you're looking at Deutsch and Popper, these are two figures that have operated only in the past 100 years, and you have a very long tradition that precedes them, that goes all the way back to ancient Greece and probably before. So that word in itself is probably not going to tell you much about what the person really is talking about. But yeah, there was something else through what you were talking about that actually came to mind, which is if we're thinking about someone approaching a certain course and trying to customize it to their own need. Does that mean that the course is meant to be a kind of an individual experience where the person taking it is going to just go through the material, possibly interact with the instructors, but do they have an actual cohort? Are they going to have classmates that might be going through the journey?
I am wanting there to be a cohort, but that I want to remind you that think of EALS in cycles, and approximately each cycle is a year. Let's call it a year. So 2026 EALS, 2027 EALS, and each one is a cohort. And the idea is to go through all the same classes each time. And I could see it evolving where we add things and take out things. And I think depending on who the cohort is this time in each cycle, we might say, okay, well, nobody's nobody seems to be interested in this particular lecture, and maybe because it's a more advanced cohort that time, and let's say the following year it's more new people, we would have a different set of classes we would give. What do you think?
Yeah, but I'm thinking more about the mechanism in which people would be interacting with one another. So if we're talking about an actual class, whether it's online or I haven't actually really done much. No, actually, we did during the pandemic. So here's what my impression was about this type of experience. I didn't feel really that people during when they're taking a specific course that they really interacted much with their classmates when it was online. Maybe because we were basically changing from one mode to another. Maybe people who do that online all the time have a certain mechanism, uh, but it didn't actually feel like a coherent group. You know, there were certain people I've never seen who took my courses. They don't open their camera, for example. They don't come to office hours. They only do exams, and the exams were online, so I never actually seen them apart from the picture that gets sent to me at the beginning of each quarter. So
I'm sure we're gonna have some of those.
so but yeah, I'm thinking about the mechanism through which this would happen. If you're presenting the material, whether it's in the form of a video or the forum, there probably needs to be some kind of an actual built-in activity or set of activities that would have someone talk to someone else about the same topic, or to have some kind of a fruitful discussion with their classmates, as it were.
Well, let me tell you this then. Tell me if this would solve that problem or be a part of the solution. Let me put this back on the screen. Each episode, lecture episode, is going to have a post like this. And I'm trying to get feedback before the live stream and then after. And then I guess I should have another little call to action saying, like, discuss with each other too. We want you to discuss with each other. And I'm pretty sure that's how that works. When you, I don't even know. Can a comment have another comment in reply to it? Does this have nested comments? Because then, you need nested comments for people to talk to each other, right?
Probably. I mean,
I put that in the wrong place. Here we go. Yeah. So did that, is that what you mean, that, to one of the ways to get people to talk to each other about the content?
yeah, but I was thinking about something a little bit more structured. So let me give you an example. When we would be doing something that's strictly on Zoom, and you have a bunch of people, there is a feature of creating breakup rooms where you end up having maybe 2 to 3 people per group. And then you have a kind of a prompt where you would give them that idea, and they go with it and start talking to each other. Sometimes they are going to give you feedback about what they discussed and share if they have something that stood out. But sometimes it's just a kind of an internal discussion where people are trying to get acquainted with what others are saying. So that's a little bit more structured. And if you're going to be attending that particular session live, if it were live, this is going to be occupying a certain chunk of time, and so you would end up doing it anyway. And so it's built into the structure, instead of soliciting feedback from people who sometimes they might answer, sometimes might not. So you might be getting replies from specific people all the time. Others might not have any kind of comment. So if you have it structured, built in, it's going to be forcing everybody to have some form of interaction.
So I want to remind you, there's probably going to be 10-1 of people who do not become members, but they're watching the discussion forum and or watching the YouTube. So we're going to have a swath of people who don't interact. And then there'll be members who also don't interact, right? They intended to, they became members, but they still don't interact. We got to do our best to try to get both of those groups to interact. And yeah, it needs to be more than just plainly ask for feedback or to tell people to talk to each other. It needs to be like, give them a project, and the project inherently is people talking to each other.
Right.
It could be something as simple as whatever the content is for that lecture. Like, let's say it's the anti-trolling one. The project could be something like, pick a case of the last time you had an interaction. How did it go? And theorize what you could have said that would have had a certain outcome. And then, that's a way to get people to start talking about the relevant content of that lecture.
Right. But that's for people. So if people are signing up for the course, not just looking at the series of lectures that might be posted on YouTube. So I can now post that as a kind of a playlist on YouTube, and I can watch it. Does that count as taking the course? Maybe, but if I'm thinking about it as an actual course with real engagement, that's going to require something a little bit more than just passively watching and taking in content. Yeah, I'm sure that some people might not want to engage, and especially when we're talking about the group of people that we're considering here, ex-Muslims who might not want to explicitly show who they are, where they're coming from, and so on. So they might want to do this anonymously throughout, and I can understand that. But what I'm envisioning is, if you're going to have an actual class, something of activities probably needs to have some level of engagement that would let people show that they are there, committed, and show that you are committed to them in order to deliver the content that they're asking for.
I think what you're saying there is do something, not nothing, that encourages them to speak with us, and that we want them to do it. Partly to inform us that things are working, or to improve something. I think that's what you're saying, right?
Yeah. What I'm saying is, maybe put this in two different paths. One of them where, yeah, you have a playing list, and you can go on YouTube and you look it up and you watch the whole thing. And then there's another path or track, if you will, where people would sign up for this and show up for certain feedback assignments or something of that sort, where there is a kind of something a little bit more rigorous than just passively watching. So you might open this for them to choose from, or to pick from, depending on how they want to do the engagement. But I think if you want to present it as a course, maybe something a little bit more structured needs to be done. It doesn't have to be interacting with you or with other instructors, or giving direct feedback. If there is a set of assignment that they need to do, as a kind of a checklist that they put ticks next to.
The analogy to the physics department is homework assignments and tests and quizzes. By the way, do you do quizzes? Pop quizzes? Do you do pop quizzes?
Well, in upper division courses, sometimes you would do that, but not pop quizzes. You would have actually a day that is
Yeah,
designated
I think
for
pop quizzes are evil.
I've never actually done this, so
Oh, good. So you're a good guy. I won't give you the Nazi label.
I'm not sure actually if there are people who still do that. Maybe there are, but
By the way, for this thing, I really don't see the point of tests. I do like the idea of homework, but I don't understand the point of tests because, I mean, for one thing, somebody brought this up to me, by the way. How are people going to know that they learned stuff? And my first response was, well, I don't even agree with the way schools in general do grades. And in the thing we're trying to teach, we're trying to get people to learn how to judge things themselves. Do they really need me saying this is how? Let me judge you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think there should be tests.
Well,
and reading them.
Yes and no. I mean, if you want to think about this from the perspective of someone who has gone through the content, and the technical word for it is a content expert, and is trying to evaluate, does that other person who's now just learning have the requisite skills that are needed in order to actually achieve mastery in that field? You're not judging, you're assessing. And so what you're doing is basically trying to make that assessment and then give some feedback to the person in order to say, yeah, I think you've done that correctly, but maybe you could have done this other thing in some other way. Because my experience as someone who has gone through this tells me that this probably wouldn't work. You're not judging, you're assessing. So I know that the difference is a little bit subtle, but it's there. And so when I'm looking at this from the perspective of students who come to my class, if I want to be able to give them feedback, I have to have some form of an assessment. My feedback has to be systematic.
Let me go along with what you're saying, and then I want to tell you about a test that I was given in a physics class. It was like the last physics class I took. It was the last year. It was solid state physics, and the way he did the test was so cool, so different than all the other times. First of all, it wasn't written. There was nothing to write. We didn't have pencils. I stood in front of the professor, and the professor asked me questions, and it was an oral exam.
Okay.
I did well on the exam. There was no math to do. You know, he's asking you concept questions, and your answers are concept answers. And you know, he's assessing me there, right? I really like the format of it. If I was going to do any kind of assessment, it would be like that. But by the way, the way that he's like, I imagine that the objectivity of the grade you get. By the way, he gave me an A. The objectivity-ness of that test compared to the other kinds of tests I've received where they look like a homework assignment, but with a grade you get at the end. I think it's a lot more difficult to be objective in the oral exam. But I think the oral exam does better at while testing because with the written exam, depending on how easy the exam was made, you know, you can if it's a homework problem style thing, you can get by with something like that without knowing much. Although I've had really hard tests that are written tests, homework style, but it's still so hard because the test problem he gave you was nothing like the homework problem. New style of problem, which is how tests should be anyway, by the way. but something like we have here, like what is the? First of all, there's no math involved. I would have trouble finding out what kind of test problems we could have anyway. So I really can't imagine but an oral exam.
Well, yeah. So first of all, tests in general are a source of anxiety for students, and oral exams in particular.
Really?
Yeah. It's especially very. So let me actually tell you something about. Back in Jordan, we had a visiting Russian professor. He's from Russia, and over there they do always oral exams.
Oh shit!
So this was unheard of at the University of Jordan. When he said, "I'm going to be doing oral exams," everybody became really so anxious. Now, the oral exam that he was doing wasn't like that. You had to write something, and then he would also be asking you to answer questions, and it was quantitative, not just conceptual. So there was a kind of an when you're mentioning the objectivity to this. My point here is that people who don't usually feel comfortable standing in front of others and giving feedback, being tested in a kind of an open way, they likely would feel anxious and might even fail the test, even if they were skilled enough to do it. So it's actually a very nice type of testing. I see here a review says, I feel like because AI cheating, we need to switch back to oral exams. Yes, I've actually heard some people advocating for that. It's possible if you have a small class, if you have a class of 600 people.
Yeah, by the way, I gotta say, in the oral exam scenario I had, there was only 2 students.
Yeah.
And they were separate, obviously. We didn't do them together. My co-student wasn't in the room when I was doing mine. So
yeah. So there are many different considerations, but if you're talking about a large class, this does not work. And of course, for something like what we're doing here, it won't work anyway. But my point is that if you want to give feedback to whoever is trying to learn something, and you're the content expert, whatever it is that you're going to be doing in order to help them evaluate whether they have actually learned the material or not, whether they have internalized what you're trying to give them, it has to take some kind of a form of assessment. It might be quantitative. In that case, it would be just some kind of a number that, based on your estimates, is going to be placing them. Yes, you have a very good grasp of the material. No, you don't have that much of a grasp. You need probably to improve here or there. Or it could be just a kind of a qualitative thing. Yeah, you actually have a good enough of a grasp, and whatever it is that you're going to be doing.
Let's do another analogy. Driving test. Okay. And we're both from America, so I think we have the same style of thing. And by the way, I don't even remember. I took the driving test 31 years ago, and I don't really remember it. But I just went through it twice with my kids, and they're having me help them. There's the written test and the actual driving a car test.
Yeah.
On the written test, I found out and remembered that you only need to get 70% correct answers to pass the test. So that means you could get 30% of it wrong, and they'll still let you on the road. And I remember my kids' psychological view of that like they're like, oh no, what if I don't pass the test? Well, look, basically this test is telling us that the people on the road, they don't know jack shit, and they let them on the road. So really we should be scared of something else. Look at all the other idiots on the road that make it dangerous for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, and then the driving part, that's probably harder to get right and do well on than the written part. But even when you pass the driving part of the test, you're still not that good. Like, people on the road 25 years are better drivers than you, which is saying, dude, what they let out on the road is such a low bar. Everyone should be careful and just imagine every other car on the road is a donkey driving. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
My kids noticed that they point this out, that when I'm crossing an intersection, I'm looking everywhere. Basically, my daughter would point it out. It's like, I noticed you're checking, and you're just looking at already ready to hit brakes, because I'm assuming somebody's going to do something dumb,
Yeah.
coming across the intersection when they shouldn't be. Anyway, back to the point. This was just an analogy. Are we going to be like, if we did some kind of assessment, are we going to be saying that, yeah, you're good enough, like the driver scenario? or
Well, yeah, probably, because if you're just making that analogy, and you're just trying to share some of the basic things that probably would take years. For example, if you're talking about therapy is something that requires so much investment in time and effort, that in order for you to actually see results from it, it's not going to appear immediately. Same thing with journaling. Same thing with dealing with your family and so on. So it's just because of the fact that you have a set of skills, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden you have that kind of superpower that you can go and do whatever you want. You have the skills, yeah. You can, like someone who just newly graduated from whatever school, they do have the required skills in order to do certain things. But does that mean that they're going to be able to do these things proficiently, efficiently, and the way that they're expected to do them, say 5 years after having experience?
Or the more difficult cases, if we're talking about a therapist, imagine somebody, at least in the US, you need 6 years of schooling, bachelor's degree and master's degree. And of course, that means after 12 years of the shit before that, K to 12, high school, all that. 4 years bachelor's degree, 2 years master's degree in psychology. And then you have to work under a therapist, and then you have a license. At that point, maybe you could do well on 95% of therapy type clients with 95% of the most normal scenarios. And then there's the 5%, which you wouldn't do well on, but somebody who's been doing it 20 years would. So there's a little bit, or maybe it's a significant bump from brand new therapist to 20 years experienced therapist.
Yeah.
But they were, again, helpful and functional for clients in 95% of cases. These numbers I'm making up, but if you consider it in physics too, it's probably the same, right? Somebody who just got their PhD, and if you think of the two areas, what they do is and it's so different: teaching and experimental. On the experimental side, you tell me, like a brand new PhD, are they really functional and helpful in a team of doing experimental stuff compared to the guys who've been doing it for 20 years?
Well, it's a tier system, because once you're done with your PhD, if you're going to be joining a lab, you're probably going to be joining as a junior researcher or a postdoctor. So this means that you're going to, so a postdoctor basically is a kind of a transition from being a graduate student to being an actual full-fledged researcher. But postdoctors mentor others. They work with other people, supervising them. They do a lot of the things that you would be expecting an actual researcher to be doing. but at the same time, they don't have that much of experience yet in so many of the different aspects of doing this.
Let's talk
So
about the. Go ahead.
yeah, so what I'm saying is that yes, they do have the required skills, but probably they need a lot of more time before you actually get comfortable with what you're doing and how you're doing it and how
Meaning
efficient
more
you're doing
skills
it.
that you'll be building, but they had a baseline set.
Yeah. But that, yeah, so the skills that they learn during their graduate school is very important, because you're not talking about just knowing how to solve certain problems. You're also learning how the field works, basically.
Now, on the teaching side, I think you were answering on the experimental lab side. On the teaching side, a brand new PhD compared to a PhD that has 20 years experience teaching, the new guy probably won't do great, but still might be in some ways better than a 20-year veteran guy.
Experience in the case of teaching is also very important. So if I compare myself now to how I was, say, 10 years ago, it's a world of difference. It's a world of
So
difference.
maybe your reviews, do they give you reviews, by the way, your students?
Oh yeah, of course. We have evaluations after.
So what were your reviews 10 years ago compared to your reviews today?
It's mixed, but there's definitely a kind of an improvement in the level of the feedback that you would get every time. The amount of so think about it as a kind of a customer satisfaction survey that you get at the end. The satisfaction right now is higher than it was, say, 10 years ago. There are certain aspects.
I imagine it did this kind of curve. It started out improving slowly, then improving fast, and now you've leveled off.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah, it's at a stage.
An S curve.
Yeah. And so yes, going back to what we were talking about, if there is a course and you're presenting what you have as a kind of a special content that people can benefit from, it means that you have enough of an experience to actually be able to offer that content.
By the way, we're over the time that you wanted.
Yeah, so probably we should wrap up. And so what I'm saying is that you're not only the expert who formulated the content, but you're also the expert who can ratify or can give some feedback by way of assessment to whoever has taken that course. Is that to the level that you're expecting? Is that something that you're expecting me to do from your perspective? So there is a kind of a reference that would come back to the instructor asking for feedback.
You know, one thing we could do is, for anyone that is really eager to get our feedback, and if they want it more than just texting in this forum, we could tell them, yeah, if you want dedicated time on our live stream where we talk to just you. By the way, we kind of already have that design. There's a type of episode I want to do where people bring on their challenges. That could be repurposed, or that could be the same episode where we, have someone come on, and if they want us to assess their knowledge, that could be happening right there.
Yeah. And one last thing before wrapping up on my end. So the type of content that's being presented here has several levels. So within the same course, you can have someone who might just want to be helping themselves navigate through life. Someone else might be interested in actually engaging publicly and doing work that eventually would lead to some form of activism. So you have two very different types of people that might be interested in this. And I would suspect the latter part, the type who would be interested in engaging publicly in doing this type of work, would be the one who would benefit from that kind of feedback more, because the other type might have certain specific individual problems that they want to talk about, whereas the type who wants to engage publicly is probably looking for a set of skills and ideas that can be used in order to build this whole approach. So I think it's going to be more or less individual.
Yeah, I do think it needs to be like that. Yeah. One little point here. My mom mentioned she just read a little bit ago that Sharif Jaber is in jail in Egypt now, and they've said so. And the jail is called Ismailiya. Ismailiya.
That's on the I believe it's on the Red Sea coast.
Okay, is that it then? Should we get off now?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, bye, Usama. See you next week.
See you next week.
By the way, should we? I guess we should still do our thing next week, Friday, even though the following day is another thing. What I've been trying to do is maybe do less if it's doubled up, but
yeah.
Are you still free next week?
Let's touch base on offline and check how this would work.
Okay. All right. Bye then, everyone. Take it easy.